Welcome back to Stories of a Volunteeraholic. I'm your host, Amy Tiemeyer, and author of Stories of a Volunteeraholic. I have my youngest, so this episode is raising the youngest volunteeraholic. And so, Saige, thank you for joining me today. What was it like being raised by a volunteeraholic?
Well, first, thank you for having me. It had its good times and bad times. I really enjoyed volunteering, and so it was majority a positive experience because it gave me so many life lessons early on that I've still been able to implement and utilize. And everybody that I knew or teachers would always be able to mark on it because it's my ability to be confident in my speech and have higher intellect conversations and just kind of whole plethora, but also just the want to be able to help people near me and have such values.
Yes, I agree. I think one of the things that I did with you different, I think, than your siblings is you boothed events for nonprofits at a far younger age than my other kids.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I had things memorized of all the different words to use or different stuff, and then because I had gotten so used to boothing and being around older people and having those conversations, it became so much easier in like middle school or high school because I was able to use those skills to use on presentations or to even just have a one-on-one with a teacher. They saw me as more understanding of what they were saying and all these different things. And so I count volunteering, especially at a young age, as such a privilege, and that it was such a privilege that I was able to do all those things and how much it's been able to positively impact me later on. I'm still volunteering with the Travis Manion Foundation and others, and so that's been a great one, and I'm able to find where I belong instead of if I had just came to volunteering by myself. I think I would have been so much more lost of trying to figure out where I can apply myself, and especially because we did it so young, and especially because during that I had such a hard mental time or different things of life events going on that I was able to progress through that.
Yeah.
And that volunteering has been able to be a constant through that. And so I learned more about myself in those lenses as well.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you saw the positiveness. Like, you were absolutely the most adorable crowd pleaser. And, as I worked at different places, I found that adults could not booth as well as I think at the time my 12-year-old could. And so I think I got spoiled on what a volunteer was capable of doing. But I also want to circle back around because I think that understanding how to volunteer well is also understanding yourself. And when we talk about mental health, do you feel volunteering sometimes was a problem with mental health or can be a problem?
I think it can be when you don't understand the full scope yet, or if you're not like a part of me, and it might not be everybody, but like when you're volunteering or doing something good and it's impacting people, you just want to do more or you want to be a part of more, and you get so caught up in the you're helping other people that you can't step back and but you're not helping yourself. And it's the like filling up other people's cup while you're empty. It took time to realize that that wasn't beneficial. Like, yes, in some case, people still got helped, but I'm not giving my best self to them if I'm not first taking care of myself. And so from my perspective, I don't know if it was your perspective, but when I got diagnosed with severe depression at, I think it was 13, I feel I stepped back from more volunteering or doing stuff like that. Like, I feel like I was doing a lot, but I don't know that I was doing as much volunteering at that moment. And so I had to take a bit more of a step back and buildup, like we talk about, like I've been in therapy now for like 8 years, but the important part of that is that I'm still maintaining and learning new coping mechanisms, and I needed those to be able to volunteer more to my fullest. And I'm still growing. There's still more things that I need to learn with volunteering and myself and where everything fits. But the idea that I could give with myself being solidly.
I think, me personally, I have grown as a person so much because of my family, and Sage has taught me more about mental health than any other person, and more than, and I've read some great books like The Body Keeps Score and just all sorts of books. But what Sage really taught me as a parent is, when it's appropriate to step back. And you guys have heard my husband, one of my other kids, my father, different things. This is where I live and breathe. But when one of your children are going through a thing, learning how to step back and not ask as much from you, because we were trying to figure out you, and you were in a new space. There wasn't other kids in our family that we could draw from on how to support you. And so that was in our time, really learning about mental health and different things like that. And because of that, I feel like I learned to be a better volunteer coordinator. I could pay attention to see, listen, and support parents whose kids are struggling versus, adding more onto them or the kid. Mm-hmm. Even the kids who we support who maybe don't have support systems at home, it's because of what I learned through being your parent that allowed me. But also, I think the dichotomy of having a kid who is high functioning. So you can't look at the high functioning piece and say that they're okay. Rub some dirt on it, spray some Windex, whatever movies you like. Mm-hmm. But really be able to be present for our families, because like you said, you're volunteering projects and with different people aren't going to be sustainable if you're robbing everybody of all of their own energy.
Yeah. When it came to, and that's why I think we can circle back of where volunteering helped me in that way, because I feel like it's also helped me with having all the words. Like, not all of it was from volunteering, but just being confident in being able to tell you things. Because even when we were volunteering, we got used to it where I could tell you if I needed to go to the bathroom. I could tell you if I need, you know what I mean? And I felt like building blocks of where we started having such a sequential communication, and we started knowing, like, we had a routine and we would always go, and I would know what we were doing all the time. You know what I mean? And so it built more of a connection, bringing me along at such a young age, that when it got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm not so mentally healthy at this moment, even though I was straight A's mainly, and I did sports and was part of poetry club and different things like that, that I didn't quite feel fully disconnected from you. And that's why in those early years are part where I noticed I had to live for you before, until I was ready to live for myself again, because my depression had gotten so bad and I just didn't have the coping mechanisms, that when you were like, I want you alive, I was like, okay, we'll keep that. We'll keep, you know what I mean? Like, I want to live if I'm wanted, but because my mental, I was so not wanting to be wanted. And so that also helps us in volunteering today, because I check in with who I know that I work with or volunteer with to be like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Like, even if it's, we have nothing going on for the next month or something like that, I can still reach out and check in. And because we've built rapport, same as when I was younger with you, they feel comfortable telling me, hey, I just can't do it next month. And I'm like, solid. We will figure out the next thing. And it's, yeah, we've just moved on with
No, and I agree with that. And I think I also feel like understanding, like if I can understand where my volunteer is, then I can prioritize what I'm asking. And I think that's really, really big because I am a big advocate of if you're in that dark place and you need to show up because you're in that dark place. And even if you can't be like the all-star that you traditionally are, but you need to be a part of everyone else's positive energy and doing one task at a time, then come and do that one task. Let me, help me to help you, but also let me just help you and let me have the right expectation for you. And that's why I get challenged with with the phrase normalizing mental health, because I think it's bigger than that. But I don't know how to articulate it right yet, and I think volunteering can have a really, really amazing impact. And it's not just all the unicorns and sparkles. It's that one thing to help someone to not pass the pain, which is how I see,
I think one of our things, which you are probably better at it than I am, but I still see it sometimes with how we communicate mental health with other people, is kind of because I was so high functioning in some level, and because of how I got you to understand, because I kind of hid it for a while, you know what I mean, was by writing you letters and having all these words, you know what I mean? We come to the limitation of expecting the other person or the people that we know now to be able to tell us what they need and what they want and stuff like that. And so I try to get more into the practice of being more watchful without using all the words, without saying all the things, without, like, instead of being too insistent of, we love you, everything's going good, to be able to, like, step back and check and be able to try to figure out. And it's hard because it's more per the person. What are they able to communicate? How are they able to communicate? What works for them? But trying to get into the niche of as many people as we see.
I agree. And I also think it's finding those, like, sometimes it's like the peopling. You're like, and me too. Like, I have peopled out. Like, I've used all my words. I want to sit on the couch and vegetate, or you want to play video games or whatever. And so if we have this communication, then the expectations are vocalized, and, like, this is what I need from you. And you're like, okay, I can do that. And then you're gone. And I'm not searching for you because I'm not fearful. I know that you hit your barrier and that's it. And then when the event is done, I can pull you out with snacks.
That is true. That is true. That is me. I have a...
And so it's say less, snack more. It is a mental health truth. And it's also why, like, I learned that, food is this really interesting product that you can utilize in different areas. And so it's not trying to get that person who has depression to look like a person who doesn't have depression or who is super excited to be there. It's understanding that both of these people are volunteers that I value. Both of these people are contributing to the overall goal of the project or the program or whatever. And if I want sustainability, I need to be able to interact with both well. And I think as you continue to grow, because hopefully, like you said, you're growing, I'm growing still, finding great projects to see. Now, of course, I love that you're a Character Does Matter mentor for volunteer for the Travis Manion Foundation. Is there any projects that you really, really enjoyed that you have felt through the years like, oh, I really wish we did that again? Or
Not one that we did together. I've volunteered in part with Right 253, which was who did the Louder Than a Bomb. It's now been titled something else, but it was a poetry slam competition that I did when I was younger. But in the years that I wasn't participating, being able to also volunteer and being part of that, because I was able to come back as a judge at times, or they do a whole bunch of different events all around Tacoma and the area, which bring together kids and bring together an increase or a want for literacy and for communication and for just an expanse of art, because they do printing and a whole bunch of different kinds of things. I don't know. I like the USO because I got to make people sandwiches. I thought that was just silly, fun, and stocking things. It was a little like grocery market that I'm like, I love that as a kid. We've done Travis Manion Foundation. I like working with kids, especially in that capacity. I love making them question things. And I know it's my trademark of talking about, but even talking about the word kindness and having them see what could be the negative impacts or negative implications when it comes to kindness that they don't think of and stuff like that. And that unpacking is always fun. I love to get people to question or get uncomfortable so that they can move on or grow more. You know what I mean? What else have we done?
Is there any ones that you're like, okay, don't ever ask me for that?
We've done. I'm not great with anything that's required me to do running, but we know that. We know Saige is not the runner or the active one in the family, so those sort of things. But you've rarely asked me to do them. I didn't love being like the parking lot attendant and just needing to be there for a full event. You know what I mean? To let people in and stuff like that, and then guide them across the bridge. Remember that? Or it's not like I think
Right,
you know what
I
I'm
do.
talking about. That space. That wasn't glorious. But it was one of those things where it's like, I think you had somebody in mind and they fell through. And so I love being the somebody fell through or you need a backup person. I love being that person because I love being able to help you if things don't work out. I just tend to, if it's something that, if you're like, oh, I have all these different things, and I'm like, okay, that's a lot. I'm spread thin. I can't do any of them, But then if I'm the backup person, I'm like, oh yeah, I can jump on that, or I can do this, and it's, I don't know why, but that seems a lot more feasible to me when it's things where I'm like, okay, I need to step into this role because of this, that, and the other sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could see Right at 253 being a love project and a lot of passion there with your poetry and just your niche and of poetry and passion. I think I love that. And I think that's exciting that, my kids have different volunteer passions and outlets themselves. And so, like both of you and Billy, and even Estella all have done projects with me with the Travis Manion Foundation and with most of them. But I also like that you're like, okay, so I will do this to support my mom when my mom needs me, but doing things on my own looks this way. I really like that. So in high school, when you were in high school, did you have to volunteer to graduate high school?
I don't think to graduate high school, I did it. I had a cap that I had to hit for JRTC, but
Okay.
they counted everything that I was doing, and I was doing a lot with you in high school, specifically when I went back to Washington High School.
So now it's a part of a requirement, from my understanding. Do you feel volunteering should be a requirement for kids? Or do you think that kind of goes against what volunteering is?
I think it makes sense. I think that if there's more resources in which they're able to like pick which one makes the most sense for them, and so that it could be semi a passion project, you know what I mean? If it's a kid that's really into art, maybe they could volunteer even with the theater department or with this, that, and the other and stuff like that. I think it could be really positive. I think from what I know, it's not a lot of hours. Like, it's not anything crazy. And so I think that it's positive even to just get people to get a little foot in the door. You know what I mean? And so it's building that. And you're always going to have the kids that somehow get a way around it or stuff like that. But as many people as they can just to try it out. It's not everybody's deal. It's not going to be something that maybe even majority of the people continue. But it gets them in such things. And part of why I want to say it's a high school requirement is that it's also making them do an activity that's out of school, that's outside of what is going on. There's some options in school, but majority of them are outside.
Cool. Do you have an idea for a nonprofit or a project that you'd ever want, you think, like, down the road, I would like to do this? And you don't have to. I'm just asking.
Well, I enjoy doing the kids writing and doing stuff like that. So I haven't reached out, but trying to do the poetry slams or stuff like that is really fun. With other avenues, I would say any like art. I don't think I've done a volunteer like art thing. So like we've talked about, there's a building at the VA golf course in which we were thinking about like repainting and kind of refurbishing a little bit. Even that could be fun. No, I have done a painting thing before, but maybe a little more artsy. Maybe I can put a heart somewhere, you know? But
very good.
Whenever it comes.
So, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience who maybe have kids, like to parents, on whether they should or be aware of this or look at this?
I think especially in childhood or as a kid, it makes it really hard when you make it more and more of like such an expected and such an expectation of how they present themselves and how they are and how they're doing in such events. Like, I understand wanting them not to be running around crazy and doing all the different things, but the more drilled down you are about what they need to be and how they need to be in that moment, the less they're able to understand the full scope of just volunteering, more of just expectation of a job or something like that. And so it's hard to make that balance or to create that balance and understand it, but it is an important thing to put time and intention into understanding your kid and what's going to make that a positive experience. You talked about giving me snacks, okay? I can always be motivated with snacks, and I think that is a positive thing for anybody. And I understand the qualms of always giving your kids snacks or different things or incentives, but it also builds them into that until they're able to accept it for their own and want to go. And so it can be a good stepping stone.
I agree with that. And I also think we all like snacks.
Yeah.
And so, as we get older, we reward ourselves. So it's not that far, as long as it's within reason and, all the good things. Well, thank you again for joining me on my podcast. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
And yes, and this is another episode of Stories of Volunteeraholic, Amy and Saige Tiemeyer.